Hey, it's Rachel at Journey Back Quilts. In this series, we are putting together traditional quilt blocks. By the end of this series, which is coming up soon, we'll have 16 finished blocks put together with sashing borders and cornerstones. In this lesson, we're going to be making the rail fence block. Let's get going. All right, to make the rail fence block, you could do this several different ways. You could use 3 different colors of a jelly roll, also called a roly-poly in the Riley Blake Designs world, or you can use some scraps, which is what I'm doing. So my scraps are measuring 2.5 inches by 6.5 inches, and I have 4 of each color, and I'm just going to sew them in this exact same way. Just chain piecing all of these together and then adding the last to it. It's a super simple, fun, beginner-friendly block. So let's take these over to the sewing machine. So I'm just going to put my 2 blues together. I've got a darker blue and a light blue. So this is another lesson real quick within this lesson is you want different values to your fabrics so that you'll have colors that pop and colors that support the pop. So I have my very dark fabric, which if I took a picture with my phone and turned it to a black and white, this color would probably turn to a very dark gray, maybe a black. The dark teal might be a black if I turn it to the black and white. And this would be a light gray to a medium gray, and then this would be white, of course. So that shows you that you have a good balance of fabrics and the colors within your block. Sometimes if you have too many dark fabrics, it just washes out the entire block and you can't decipher what the block looks like. So this is a good tip to try to get all of your fabrics to balance each other. So I'm just going to put these 2 right sides together, lining up my raw edges. And we're going to sew those down at a 1/4 inch seam. I am using my foot that has a guide on the side here, and that helps me to get my fabric right at that 1/4 inch line. If your pieces aren't turning out to be a 1/4 inch, then you may want to play with the position that your needle is in, and you can move that with the one of your buttons or a dial that changes the width of your stitch. Especially if you're doing a zigzag stitch, it would move it over to the left or the right. So play with it and line it up with your ruler and figure out where that 1/4 inch sits for you. Okay, and then I'm just going to, I sewed right off the edge of that fabric, and I'm going to put my next pieces right sides together. Make sure you do that, that's important. So my needle is right off of that. I'm not breaking thread yet. I'm just going to lift my foot, put the next one on there, and keep sewing. This is called chain piecing, and it helps you save thread and time because you're not pulling out that each piece individually as you go, wasting a huge chunk of thread. Okay, now that those are sewn into pairs of 2, I'm going to clip apart the connecting threads with my handy little cutting gizmo. And then we can just finger press this over so it opens up, or you can take it to the ironing board. I'm just going to finger press it and keep sewing. So now I'm going to put my white fabric right sides together with my lighter fabric. You could put these in any order you want to. And we're going to sew that down at a 1/4 inch seam on the other side. Sometimes I'll just start it at the top, get those all the raw edges lined up, and then pause, line up the rest of the edges, and then keep going. That way you're not trying to get everything just perfect before you even start. Because sometimes what happens is you'll get it all lined up just perfect all the way down. You'll set your block down and then something will flop over. It'll fold on you and you'll have to fix it anyway. So just get that first part started. Make it easy on you. And I like to use my foot and needle as my third hand whenever possible. All right, just make sure you're sewing them to the correct side. This is a great quilt that you could do with lots of different fabrics. You could be really scrappy, but for this block, I'm just going to do these 3 fabrics. Okay, clip apart those connecting threads and let's take them to the ironing board. Okay, and what I want to do is iron all of these seams going towards the darker fabric. So I'm going to lift up both of these seams, leaving the white on my ironing board, and just press that seam over towards the blue fabric. And then lift up this one and let that seam get pushed over to the dark blue fabric. And do that to all 4 of these. Next, I want to double check that these are measuring 6.5 inches square. So I've got my 6.5 inch ruler here. And 2 1/4 should be that first seam. 4 1/4 is the second seam. That will help you get it lined up. And they are looking really good. There's just a tiny bit of extra, but because it's just a teeny tiny little bit, I'm just going to leave it alone. So you can go ahead and check all 4 of these if you want to. Make sure they're lined up nicely. And next I'm going to take one of my design boards. This one's very well loved. It's got lots of threads on it. And now we get to play with our layout. So however you want to lay these out, if you want to do something like this, make the whites be the inside and make kind of a pinwheel look, or you could do a step ladder with them. Let's see. Where they're all kind of nope. Something like that. There's lots of different ways to do this block. Could do that. I kind of liked the pinwheel look, but I think I want the blue to be the pinwheel. Something like that. Okay, now we're going to just sew it together like a 4 patch. These 2 are going to go together and these 2 are going to go together, ironing the seams in opposite directions so that we can nest that perfect point in the middle and our block will be finished. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and I'm just going to match up those raw edges, making sure that they're lining up where they're going to meet in the center. The outside we can trim off if there's a little extra. But if they're all measuring 6.5, then that shouldn't be happening, right? All right, clip apart those connecting threads. Let's go take it to the ironing board. So for these seams, I want to iron them going towards this straight block. So I'm just going to push it over towards that straight block on both of them. And you'll see that they're both exactly the same. Oops. See, they're both exactly the same block until we rotate one, and then we can put them together. So now I'm going to focus on nesting that seam in the center. Get that nested. If you need to put a pin or a wonder clip in there, you can. And then line up the raw edges, and we're going to go sew that down. Now that I'm past that nested seam, then I'm going to line up the raw edges on the rest of the block. I didn't worry about getting them all perfect beforehand. All right, let's go iron this seam and we'll be done. So because our seams are spinning, this seam here is going towards the right and this seam here is going towards the left. I want to spin these seams as well. So this one's going to go down, this one's going to go up. Now the only thing is you want to be careful not to just set the iron down on it, because it's going to fold. It could fold some fabric over and shorten your block. So I want to make sure that that's laying nice and flat if we're going to iron from the back. And then hit that center, and then make sure this is opening all the way as well. We'll turn it to the other side and double check everything. Look at all those nice seams. Okay, we're just going to flip it over. Make sure this is ironing towards that one. This one's over here. Give it a nice press diagonally, vertically, horizontally, all the things. Don't pull on your fabric though. Now let's double check that this is measuring 12.5 inches. So our 6.25 inch mark should be resting right on the center lines, going both directions as best as we can. If it's really funky, you might want to re-iron it. And then we're going to just trim off any excess around the outside if there is any. I have just a little bit here. And there we go. You made the rail fence block. Great job. Hey, thanks so much for joining me today in making this rail fence block. I hope that you enjoyed this and you're going to go make one for yourself. We would love to see the pictures of all these blocks that you've been making with us. You can post them on our free Facebook page, which is in the description box below. If you would like more help in your quilting journey, I invite you to join our society, a membership where you will get a library full of quilting tutorials to help you on your journey. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and next week we're going to be making the card trick block. I'll see you then. If you would like more help in your quilting journey, I invite you to I can't talk today. Are you laughing at me yet? Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and next